Did you know pigs are amongst the most intelligent animals, up there with chimpanzees, dolphins and elephants? Did you know pigs can play video games? Did you know pigs have a more sophisticated cognitive ability than dogs or 3-year-old children? Did you know pigs develop highly complex social structures and form strong bonds with other members of their group? Did you know 24 hours before giving birth, pregnant pigs leave their social group in order to collect branches and soft material to make a nest? Did you know pigs feel pain? Did you know in most intensive piggeries, mother pigs are confined to barren cages no bigger than their bodies for the duration of their pregnancy, lying on hard ground? Did you know that in Australia, 6 million pigs are killed every year for meat? Did you know that of those 6 million, over 90% are imprisoned in overcrowded factories and have the tips of their teeth broken off and their tails cut off without pain relief? Thank you for all coming out here today. I'm Jess Ferry and I represent Animal Liberation ACT. Since Animal Liberation ACT and New South Wales released footage and photos of the deplorable conditions at Wally's Piggery last week, nearly 15,000 people have signed the online petition to have the place shut down. But this investigation is not just about Wally's, but giving the Australian public the inside story on the pig industry. Today you have the opportunity to sign the petition if you haven't already. The petition will be delivered to the Minister for Primary Industries, Katrina Hodgkinson, as well as the RSPCA and the New South Wales Food Authority next week. Also, please help yourself to the flyers with information about the pig industry. Take a heap and give them to your friends, your family, your colleagues at work. And today you'll be hearing from Caroline Lakuta, Greens member for the Legislative Assembly, and me about the Australian pig industry. So firstly, please welcome Caroline Lakuta.
Thank you, Jess. And I nearly had a tear already in my eyes with Jess talking about pigs. Pigs are wonderful animals. As happy as a pig and shit is how I think we'd all like to be, actually. This debate is about animal cruelty. What has been happening to those animals is immoral and illegal, and it should not be happening in Australia or anywhere. Pigs, as Jess said, are very intelligent animals. We share a genetic code largely with pigs. Pigs' organs have even been transplanted into human beings. They feel pain, they feel pleasure. It is wrong, it is immoral, it's unethical, the sort of treatment that Australia is doing to pigs, Wally's Piggery in particular. And I wasn't able to watch the whole video on the website. 13 minutes of it was more than I could take, and I think I'd be confident in saying that was more than virtually anyone in Australia could take in terms of looking at animal cruelty. It is simply wrong. Animals are sentient beings. As Jess said, pigs are highly intelligent. They feel pain. They feel pleasure. There is absolutely no justification for keeping them like that. And one of the distressing things is that it's not just one piggery that seems to be at fault here. There was more videos put up yesterday on the website. There are a couple of other piggeries that have been videoed, and they're also having the same sorts of issues. Just talk briefly about sow stalls. They are a barbaric practice for raising pigs. The animal simply cannot move. I think it's probably even more cruel than cage egg production. The sows, all they can do is just lie there. They're simply biological. They're not animals. They're biological machines. That's how we're treating these sentient beings, and it is absolutely wrong. It's absolutely unacceptable practice. Last year, there was a huge public outcry about the live export of animals. And very rightly, the Australian public said this is simply not acceptable. But what Animal Liberation has uncovered is that things like that are happening here in Australia, not far from us now, within 100 k's of us. These sorts of things are happening to pigs now. This is wrong, and we need an equal amount of outrage to try and, well, not to try and stop us, that's what I was going to say, so that we can actually stop this sort of behaviour. This is an ongoing problem. Earlier this year, New South Wales did an audit of their abattoirs, and they found that there were animal welfare breaches in all 10 red meat abattoirs in New South Wales. All of the red meat abattoirs in New South Wales, animal welfare breaches. Because of that, they're going to have more animal welfare officers introduced in New South Wales, which I'm sure is a good thing. But to make it really stick, what we have to have is what we've got here today. What we've got all of you here today, public outrage. This is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. And I'm pleased to say that there is a bit of legislative action happening at the same time. The examples I'm going to give, I'm afraid, are all Greens. It's not just because I'm a Greens member, but I think the Greens seem to be where most of the action is happening. In New South Wales, as a result of the audit finding all the abattoirs had problems, the Greens are moving to have CCTVs at all abattoirs so that we don't have the situation that things happen behind closed doors, so that we have this is how we're going to solve the problem. If people knew what was happening, we wouldn't have this cruelty. Everybody in Australia is, just almost everyone in Australia simply would not find what's happening in Wally's and the other piggeries acceptable. In Tasmania, they have decided to phase out sow stalls and to phase out battery cage production of hens. This will be a couple of years, but it has started and it will make a difference. In New South Wales, John Kay is trying to introduce legislation to regulate what we mean by free range as far as chickens are concerned. As you may be aware, the chicken producers are trying to redefine that. We used to have free range, meaning up to 2,500 chickens per hectare for egg production. There's a proposal to change that to 150,000 chickens per hectare. That's basically a sheet of A4 paper per chicken. That is, how you can call that free range, I have no idea. It's a cage without a roof, that's what it is. The same thing is trying to happen with free range egg production, except it'll be 15,000. These are things that we need to stop. These are things that are happening federally, and we need to say this is not acceptable. In the ACT, the Greens had before the Legislative Assembly a bill to end factory farming in the ACT, to say that there will be no more cage egg production in the ACT and that sow stalls can never be done in the ACT. So far, neither the Liberal or the Labor Party have indicated that they will support this bill, but this rally here today is a way that we will get support for this. There are other things you can do. By turning up today, you've made it's a wonderful statement. There are petitions floating around. Please sign a petition before you leave. There may be more than one. Yeah, there's someone there with a petition. Sign one before you leave. Another thing to do is reduce your consumption of meat products and animal products. If there's no, or reduce down to zero, it would be a great outcome, but if that's not for you, at least reduce it. If there's no market for this stuff, it won't happen. Don't eat, and the meat you do eat, try and get it from ethical producers. There is free-range pork producers. There are free-range pork producers who do not do these sorts of things. Right to the go vegan, go vegetarian. Right to the paper. Post the link to this on Facebook and Twitter. Tell your friends. Sign all of this. The only way we'll change this is the public saying this is not acceptable. Last year we had the public saying what is happening in Indonesia with live exports is not acceptable. What we need to say this year is what is happening in Australia is not acceptable. It should not happen as part of a civilised nation. As Gandhi said, how you look after animals it shows the civilisation, the moral fibre of a country. We are not showing ours in a very good light. Thank you very much for coming here, and thank you very much for Animal Liberation for doing the job our government should be doing and finding out this animal cruelty. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline, for coming to speak today. I'm just going to speak for a few more minutes and yeah. Okay, I doubt there is a single person here today who has watched the footage and seen the photographs and who doesn't condemn the horrific acts of cruelty. To see sick, dying or dead piglets lying around their mothers' confined bodies is unbearably sad. To see malnourished sows chewing on bars, to see decades of spiderwebs, cats, rats and filth fill shed upon shed of these so-called farms is nauseating. To see large, intelligent, inquisitive animals confined to barren cages no bigger than their bodies for so long that they develop pressure sores from the hard ground that they lie upon is beyond comprehension. The industry is saying that Wally's is a one-off, a rogue operator. And yet earlier this week, Animal Lib ACT New South Wales captured footage inside two other piggeries in New South Wales, Allen's Piggery near Yass and Tennessee Piggery near Young. The footage, released on our website aussiepigs.com.au yesterday, demonstrates that this is the pig industry's standard way of raising pigs for profit. Wally's is indicative of the larger pig industry. To quote Ruth Harrison from Animal Machines, in fact, if one person is unkind to an animal, it is considered to be cruelty, but where a lot of people are unkind to animals, especially in the name of commerce, the cruelty is condoned, and once large sums of money are at stake, will be defended to the last by otherwise intelligent people. In Australia, it is not only legal, but standard industry practice to restrict mother pigs to tiny barren stalls for the duration of their 4-month pregnancies, to restrict mother pigs to a different kind of iron cage called farrowing crates prior to the birth of their young, until their young are ready to be weaned. It's standard industry practice to perform painful procedures without anaesthetic, such as castration, tail docking, cutting bits of their ears for identification, and breaking off the tips of their teeth. It is standard industry practice to subject sows to repeat pregnancies until they are too lame, injured or can no longer fall pregnant, at which point they go to slaughter, which is on average around 2 years old. It is standard industry practice to send pigs aged between 4 to 6 months to slaughter in slaughterhouses, as Caroline mentioned, that have been found in New South Wales to have welfare breaches. Free range, however, is not the solution. Definitions of free range are so varied and unlegislated that it can mean simply access to fresh air, not actual free ranging. And they all end in the same place, the slaughterhouse, after only getting to live a small fraction of their natural lifespan. Pigs can live up to 10 years. They go to slaughter 4 to 6 months. Sows, mother pigs, go to slaughter around 2 years old. They can still have their tails docked, their teeth pulled, and are castrated as piglets without anaesthetic in free-range systems. And free-range piggeries are still allowed to use farrowing crates, where mother pigs are confined and can't even turn around to look after their babies. The very fact that an intensive piggery housing 4,000 animals was located only 20 minutes from Canberra, but was unknown to most Canberrans, speaks volumes about the hidden nature of this industry. This industry depends on secrecy and will go to great lengths to conceal itself from the public. We do not drive along and see these properties with massive shed complexes. They are always kept hidden. Each section of the industry is protected by a marketing PR type organisation such as Australian Pork Limited for the pig industry. These organisations go to significant lengths to assure the public that they have their animals' best interests at heart. But as we have seen, the reality is anything but this. And where is the RSPCA in all of this? Not doing very much at all. In fact, there has been a total lack of action on this issue by the RSPCA. They have said that the closure of the piggery would have an impact on feeding, watering and the welfare of the animals that remain on the property. However, what about the welfare impact of the pigs by allowing this piggery to continue to run? What do pigs have in common with cats and dogs and people? They feel pain, they feel fear, and they scream when they are terrified. If this cruelty happened to a dog or a cat, the RSPCA would be more outraged, more likely to speak up, and more likely to prosecute. It is a simple question. Why don't pigs get the same protection? Why doesn't the RSPCA enforce the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act to bring about justice for these pigs? Or at the very least, why does the RSPCA refuse to provide a voice for these pigs who, after all, have feelings and needs just like our dog or cat at home? If the RSPCA really wanted to live up to its name and prevent cruelty to animals, it would charge the owners of this despicable piggery with animal cruelty offences today and ban them from ever going near another pig again. So how do we put a stop to the horror, the violence and the suffering? I think some people yelled it out before. We start by choosing to align our behaviour with our values. If we value our freedom, health, families, environment, isn't it time we allowed others to experience those things too? These values should not be restricted on race, religion, sex, nor species. Animals have intrinsic value, independent from human desires. They have a right to remain alive and not be exploited. If you believe that animals and humans share one basic moral right, which is to be treated with respect, then don't support their enslavement, their suffering, and their killing. Please check out veganeasy.org for food ideas and recipes that don't involve pain, cruelty, or misery. And there are Vegan Easy cards being handed out around the place. Some up there in the air. That's basically it. We can do some marching or some chants if we like, or we can actually march to something that's been organised by the ACT Vegan and Veg Society and Animal Activism Collective. Kindly organised free vegan cake at the food co-op, which is just a couple of blocks away. Please feel free to join us there after the march. Please feel free to take more flyers, hand them out and about, sign the petition, get friends and family to sign the petition, and thank you very much for coming out and being a voice for the pigs.
And the day after that, let your voice be heard. Let your voice be the voice for the animals that suffer and scream behind closed doors. Tell the world you want animal liberation. Tell the world you want it now. What do we want?
Animal liberation!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Animal liberation!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Animal liberation!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Animal liberation!
When do we want it?
Now!
They can't hear you over there, come on. What do we want?
Animal liberation!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Animal liberation!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Animal liberation!
Thank you. Tell the world, go vegan. There's no such thing as humane slaughter.